the About AR podcast. I'm your host Libby, and in today's episode we'll be hearing from Rise AR founder Paul Smith. He'll be talking about mobile AR. What are the challenges and opportunities? Where are we getting it right or wrong? And why, in his view, mobile AR is the key to long-term sustainability. So, let's do that first then. Here's Paul.
I think in order to address the question of sustainability and the long-term prospects for augmented reality, I think it's important that we look at where we are right now at this moment in time with it, and also try to figure out the journey that needs to be taken to underpin AR and guarantee its future. And as I see it, there are two very clear sectors developing in AR now. There's a steadily growing mobile sector, and there's some great stuff happening there. Some not so good stuff as well. And there's a very, very fast growing wearable sector. A lot of focus on that at the moment, from what I can see. So I guess people chase the hardware that's available to them, don't they? So there's a whole new generation of wearable devices being launched by people like Magic Leap and Facebook getting in on the act too, I see. And it's only natural that developers are going to want to focus on those opportunities that it brings, and that's a great thing. I think in general terms, most people still don't know or understand what augmented reality is. They'll probably have used it without even knowing, of course. Anybody that's used a Snapchat filter or played on Pokemon Go probably wouldn't identify with it as augmented reality, but that doesn't necessarily matter. And I'm coming really from a European perspective, a UK and European perspective, I guess. I don't know what the situation is in the States or in China, for example, but if I put 10 people in a room and ask them what augmented reality is, I'm pretty sure that 9 of them wouldn't have the first clue. That in itself doesn't matter. It's the experience they get that matters. And I guess what I'm getting at is I'm trying to drill down into what we need to do. What is it that's going to make AR secure in the long term? And I think the obvious answer to that is to put it into the hands of as many people as we can throughout the world, and also to make it indispensable. And I think that's very important. It needs to be something that people can't do without. We need to get people using AR as part of their daily routine, almost on a subconscious level, I guess. And once we've done that, then we've pretty much built a safety net under the whole AR industry, and everything that happens thereafter can spring from that bedrock. So that said, how do we do that? Well, the best way to reach as many people as we can, of course, is to target mobile devices. There are 6.5 billion mobile devices or so in circulation at the moment. They cover a whole range of demographics, people from different social backgrounds, different age groups, different religious groups. And every single one of them really deserves the opportunity to have access to this technology, in my view. So that's why mobile is so important. And going back to an earlier point, it's important that we create experiences for them that make it indispensable. I guess if you look at all the major social media platforms now, look at Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, it's hard to imagine life without these tools, isn't it? Really. And that's where we want to be with AR, I think.
So what are the limiting factors of mobile AR?
Well, there are limiting factors to mobile AR, of course there are, but I think there are with any form of immersive tech. VR has to be done in a controlled environment to a degree. So that's a limiting factor. But yes, mobile does have its own set of unique challenges. I think the obvious one, of course, is screen size. And when you're designing AR for mobile, we have to consider the small size and maximize the screen real estate that we get. But I guess most developers will know that already. It's just a question of clever UI design. You don't get the wide field of view with a mobile device that you do with others as well. So I guess all the content has to be condensed a little more to give a useful experience to the users. Of course, generally when you're operating any AR application through a mobile device, you're going to be holding it with at least one hand. So I guess that presents a few challenges in terms of how you build in interaction into these things. But these are all things that are not insurmountable. I've got faith in the developer community. They're pretty used to dealing with this stuff. But it just means that you have to have a more intimate experience with AR on a mobile, I guess. But then it becomes a question of creating the right content, I think. I think battery life potentially is an issue. We've built a few things ourselves using the usual AR toolkits like AR Core and AR Kit. And I've had some quite alarming battery drainage issues in the past, but I think that's probably more to do with me not building content correctly. But it's something we can't ignore. I think particularly some of the newer tools available to developers are potentially quite memory intensive and battery intensive, and we don't want to put people in a position where they won't use augmented reality because it's given them a total battery life of about 12 minutes. That's just no good for anybody. So yeah, optimizing content, making it load, unload better, all the rest of it is going to help. So yeah, there's a unique set of challenges with mobile AR. But personally, I think that's a good thing. I think it's nice that we're having to focus on making mobile AR work for mobile devices.
What are your thoughts on current mobile AR content?
Mobile content, well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I see some fantastic mobile stuff. I'm thinking, I guess now in terms of a consumer type AR. I'm really into the retail stuff. The try before you buy scenario, I think is pretty exciting, and I think it's a great example of where AR has tremendous value and benefit to the user. Also in enterprise, for sales and marketing, it's had a fair share of success. We built an app ourselves for an ergonomic IT company that allowed their sales team to demonstrate a range of monitor arms and components in a way that they wouldn't possibly be able to do in real life because of the sheer size and weight of these things. So there's a lot of good stuff going on in mobile AR, and a lot of stuff that's not so good. I guess like anybody else, I just check out social media and see what's going on there and see what people are putting on, and I see a lot of people putting cute puppies on their desktop and shooting bubbles out of the air. And although it's nice to look at for a few minutes, it doesn't have any real lasting value, does it? And that's a bit of a concern because going back to an earlier point, it's all about we're talking here about making mobile AR indispensable, and I don't think we're going to do that by just having transient experiences that last only a few seconds. That's my view. Other people might not agree, and I think in general the main thing we need to understand is that you should only make AR applications that can only be done with AR. In other words, if you're making something and ask yourself the question, is there any other way that I could deliver this experience to the user? Is there any other way that I could deliver this information? And if the answer is yes, then perhaps you might want to consider doing something else. The answer is no if you think, yeah, I'm confident the only way I'm going to be able to get this information across is by using augmented reality. then stick with it, because the chances are it's going to be of great value and great use to somebody. And then we're on this road. We're on the correct road to making AR indispensable. It may sound obvious, but think about the things you've seen. Think about the things you've done with AR. And I'm as guilty as anybody over this. And I've done stuff that could probably be done just as easily through a web browser. Interactive exploration of real estate, housing models, things like this. It's all very well putting it on the page of a brochure and using augmented reality to display it and make it pop out. But I've been looking at interactive models on websites for 5-6 years now. So why would you want to go to the trouble to download an app, to find an app, to launch it, to hold your phone up, when you can simply log on through a browser? These are the kind of experiences that I think we can do without, and I think we need to think very carefully about the content, because it is a critical part of this journey.
Is it important to target legacy devices?
Is it important to target legacy devices? In an ideal world, yes. And as I said at the top of this, we want to make AR accessible to as many people around the world as quickly as possible and as easily as possible. But it's a tough one, isn't it? It's difficult to strike a balance between using the latest AR tools and making perhaps simpler stuff for older legacy devices. We look at a lot of the tools and methods being used for AR now, face recognition, environment tracking, occlusion meshing even. They're all going to require latest chips, latest hardware to be able to operate at anywhere near efficient function. So there are limitations, and I don't think I have all the answers to that. It might be interesting to see what other people say about how we reach those legacy devices, how we reach that wide audience. Perhaps people in developing countries that don't have the latest phones. I still know people that are walking around with iPhone 4s. So it's a challenge, and it's probably something that's been overlooked to a degree. But I'm not sure I know the way forward.
Where should mobile AR development take us next?
So, looking forward to the future, after everything I've said and discussed here, I think for me, having shared experiences with augmented reality is the key going forward. There's been a whole campaign about AR democratization over the last couple of years, and people now are talking very keenly about making multi-user experience, getting shared AR experience across a whole community. We want to create a user community of augmented reality using these applications and sharing information and adding information to it, and using things like cloud anchors and all this kind of stuff. So I think that's very important going forward, because if you think of AR in its simplest form, it's quite a solitary experience, isn't it? It's generally one person with one mobile device enjoying an experience, or maybe wearing a headset or something. But it's a very solitary experience. So I think through geolocated AR is going to be extremely important in coming years. And there are certain tools available that will make it easier to implement that. And user-generated input is another thing. I think once we can get AR users contributing stuff to AR applications, that'll further cement its place in the social fabric, if you like. So let's get everybody using AR. That's the key. Let's get everybody sharing AR, and I think once we build that AR community, then that's when it's going to become an indispensable product for everybody.
Thank you, Paul. You've explained your views on mobile AR. Of course, it'd be interesting to see if any of our listeners agree, and you can all join in on the conversation using our Twitter hashtag #AboutARPod. So, to round it all up, Paul, can you just quickly summarise your thoughts on mobile AR?
Well, I think if I had to summarise everything that I've been discussing and everything that I've been talking about here, I would say that AR is here, there, and pretty much everywhere. Just want to see more of it. I want to see developers get creative, and I want to see them focus on making AR experiences that are genuinely beneficial, genuinely useful to the people that are using them. And I want to see more people enjoying using AR. I want to see everybody in the world using AR and sharing AR experiences with their families and friends, and I want to see them talking about AR. And when we get to the point where that happens, and when it becomes as ingrained in your life and as natural as, brushing your teeth or something, then I think it's fair to say that we'll have its mission accomplished, and we can then carry on creating some fantastic AR stuff. And I think that's going to happen in not just in mobile form, it's going to happen on all sorts of platforms, and that for me is very, very exciting indeed. Can't wait.
And that's it for this episode. Please make sure you follow us on our SoundCloud account. We'll be posting a new episode monthly, and that's the easiest way to keep up to date with everything we're discussing. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to you joining us again next time.